So I fell back into the zombie trap a bit here today. I was thinking about a guy who's let me stay at his place, little guest house. Just get a bunch of wooden crates and wanted to do something with them, and thought about, putting them on Craigslist and selling them $5-10 a piece, whatever. And I started thinking, okay, what's the best way to maximize financial gain from those crates? You realize that's zombie thinking. No, what I should be doing is, in answering that question, is finding out what's the best way to allocate those resources for their best need. I do have them available to me. It's a potential resource for me, but what's the best way to distribute that resource? It's not to make as much money as possible for myself. It's to best allocate them. If I make some money in the process, okay, that's even better. Oh, cool. But it's not necessary. So, there we have it. Anyway, just wanted to mention that I caught myself doing that and realized it was just a bad idea. See, we have to think about the consequences of every action we take. We have to ask ourselves a lot more what-if questions than we do. We don't ask any what-if questions, basically, when it comes to resources, things like that. Making decisions that affect others. We drive our car. We don't, we put 10 gallons of gas in the tank. We don't even consider where that gas came from, all the energy, how much fossil fuel was used, and we're going to use, buy 10 gallons of fuel. You're not just buying 10 gallons of fuel, you're buying the fuel that was used to make the fuel in the first place. 10 gallons of fuel is, I don't know how many gallons of oil it is, 20, 30? How much carbon is put into the air before you even use that 10 gallons? How much is put in it when you do use the 10 gallons? You don't know that, so you don't know the consequences. Well, what are the consequences? So what if there's just that much carbon put in the air? Oh, so what? So what times 7 billion, huh? It's a lot of people. People forget that we have power in number. The same reason that you don't think that global warming is real is the same reason we don't have power in this country, because you don't understand. You understand the effect that working together has. There are 370 million people in the United States, yet our policy is being made by about 12. Maybe a couple hundred. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Saying hi to a neighbor there. So, you didn't understand that, if you're one out of 370 million people, yeah, you got no power. But if you're one of 370 million people, you've got a hell of a lot of power, don't you? So when you go down to buy your gas, you think you're one of 7 billion or however many drivers there are on this planet. Probably about 500 million. Maybe a billion. No, probably more like 2 billion, actually. So you go down, you're thinking you're one of 2 billion people. You're just one person. No, you're one of 2 billion. You are 2 billion people. Whenever you buy 10 gallons of gas, you're buying 10 gallons of gas times 2 billion. Okay, think about that. Every time you buy gas, 2 billion other people are buying it too. So what are the consequences of 2 billion people buying 10 gallons of gas? Don't separate yourself from the consequences. You can't. Because you're a part of that. You are not the only person buying gas. You're one of 2 billion people buying it. So that's what your decision has to be based on. Now, it's a very simple thing. You're not one in. You're one of. You're not an individual acting alone. You're one of however many billion do the same thing. You live in the United States. You're one of 370 million people that live in the United States. So if you make a decision that affects someone that lives in the United States, you make a decision that affects 370 million people. If you are doing something that affects everyone on the planet, then you are one of everyone on the planet. So every time you make that decision, every time you make that action, do that action, you're affecting everybody on the planet. You know, and if it's just your neighborhood, if you just do something like blasting your music, you know, what happens if you blast your music? Okay, you're affecting the ability of others in your neighborhood to have a good night's rest. You're stressing them out. Who does that affect? Everybody in the world. Everybody in the world is however minutely affected, but they are affected by your blasting your music. So no, there are consequences that you don't see. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean the consequences aren't as real. Doesn't mean that it doesn't affect things. You have to understand that. And only in understanding that can you get rid of the zombie disease. You know, only by thinking for yourself. Only by acting for yourself. But acting with the knowledge that it affects others. Can you be a human being? Anyway, I'm gonna stop concentrating on this show for a while. By the way, I'm finding that it's actually a cause of depression, not a relief for it anymore. So I'm gonna stop that. What a loser, fucking dumbass. Anyway, fucking idiot driving around blasting his music in his truck, in his lifted truck. Oh, what does lifting my truck have to do with anybody else? Oh, the resources that you spent doing so, and the safety hazards you create in doing so. So don't give me your shit about, oh, it doesn't affect anybody. Everything you do affects everyone. You can't ignore the consequences. Trying to ignore the consequences is what zombies do. Good evening. Welcome to a brief, probably, maybe, segment of Zombie Apocalypse Diaries. Wanted to talk about war. World Wars I and II, and most other wars, but especially those wars. It's important that you go find this out for yourself, but ask yourself if World Wars I and II weren't really just games played by the powerful who had petty arguments with each other over money and essentially used the citizens of the world as pawns to play their game for them. And they are attempting to do precisely the same thing. We are talking, of course, about the primary zombies. They create armies of secondary zombies and wage a world war. We've already had 2 zombie apocalypses. They're called world wars. And this one's going to be the worst, by far. The way I figure it, just rough guesstimate, and my rough guesstimates are usually scarily accurate. But I'm thinking 10 years and 5 billion people killed. So, you know, and please take that seriously. Please consider that as something that you need to ask if it's really possible. You know, this is just a show, right? Well, could be. But this is something you really want to make sure you know for sure. And hopefully I remember it again soon. Oh yes, wars. Yes. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we don't want, you know, to be waging war for the zombies. So how do we fix it? We just have to recognize the truth. The primary zombies, psychopaths, who can be cured, are attempting once again to wage war to reduce the population, increase their relative resource value and importance in the world, and start anew. I mean, think about the way the world was after World War I and World War II. You know, what happened? You know, don't fall into that trap of, yeah, it'd be a good thing if we lost 5 billion people, man. Things would be better for the rest of us. Well, what if you're one of the 5 billion? So don't ask that question unless you're willing to answer, yes, I'm willing to give up my life to allow someone else to be happy. Yeah, don't ask, don't, be careful what you ask. Anyway, I'll make this a different segment too, so good night for now. Hello again. Goodbye.